Today we are going over Genesis chapter 13. We will start with verse 1. It says, "And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south." So, last chapter, we seen that Abram was forced to leave Egypt for lying about his wife being his sister, and got him in a lot of hot water with Pharaoh, and got Pharaoh in a lot of hot water with God. So he ended up being pushed to moving south. It says, "And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold," thanks to the Pharaoh, who took a liking to him because he thought he was marrying his sister and not his wife. "And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai." So Abram's back where he started. And that's kind of a lesson that God will do sometimes, is when you think you're getting away with something, or when you think you're getting one over on somebody or God, you'll find out that God puts you right back where you started and kind of tells you this is time for a redo. So this is basically what he done with Abram. The only difference was Abram has all this stuff that he got from Pharaoh. He's obviously come back a lot richer. But we'll see how that works out for Abram as well. So verse 4, "Unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord." So he's back at the altar he made when he first got to the land. "And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together." So basically, both of them had such a number of flocks and herds and manservants and so forth, that they weren't able to live around each other and fully support what they had. So it says, "And there was strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land." So what we have here is your typical fight in the family, over something silly. But this was not directly Abram and Lot, even though I do believe, they had their words and differences. This is just a matter of you've got too much, trying to get too much out of one area. There wasn't enough room for all of them in that spot. So it says, "Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left." So Abram is trying to be rational with Lot. He's telling him, look, there's not enough food and resources to support both our clans. So the best thing for us to do is to go our separate ways. And he tells him here, let there be no strife. So he doesn't want Lot to be mad at him. He doesn't want any anger between them. So he tells him, he said, you pick a direction and go, and I'll go the other way. He's like, I don't have to make, the choice. I'll let you make the choice. If you want the land over here, you can have the land over here, and I'll take the land over here. He's going out of his way trying to be accommodating to Lot. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. So this Sodom and Gomorrah was so evil that they even talk about Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed before we even get to Sodom and Gomorrah. Before Lot makes it to Sodom and Gomorrah, the Bible has already said and declared that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. I mean, the Bible is re-emphasizing right here, before we even see the details of just how rotten to the core Sodom and Gomorrah was. Verse 11, then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. So Lot went to the plain of Jordan. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So that means they were bad. They were exceedingly. I mean, that's almost to the max. Like they just didn't care about God anymore. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. So when Lot left, God come in to Abram, and he basically told him, anywhere you can see is going to be your land filled with your children. Your seed, your family's going to inherit all this. You're going to have so many generations of families that, the dust, you'd have a better chance of counting the dust on the earth than counting how many family you're going to have through the generations. So he says, arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So God is still 100% behind Abram, even after Abram done what he done. There's stuff about Abram that's not explained in here, because God doesn't usually side with liars, and people present themselves as something they're not. So there's more to Abram than what we know. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying there's some reason Abram was important to God even after all that. So that's it for this. But this is a perfect example of, even back then, you had the family drama, the family infighting between Abram and Lot. hard-headedness of neither one of them wanted to go anywhere, and Abram finally had to sit down with Lot and say, this is not going to work. None of us is going to be living here if one of us don't leave. So it's like I said, the day-to-day struggles, the infighting in the families, none of this is new. This all goes back to when this was going on. This is old school stuff. You know, the same situations we're dealing with now with family drama and stuff, they were going on thousands of years ago. So, but Abram handled it the right way. He didn't get mad. He told him, let there be no problems between us, let there be no anger between us. So Abram handled it right. So that's the end of this one. We will do the next chapter in a day or two, and we'll see what happens with Lot at some point. And Abram has a lot going on with him at some point.